TrevBeats Show, TrevBeats Show. Yeah. TrevBeats Show, TrevBeats Show.
Welcome back to another high-impact episode of the TrevBeats Show. I'm your host, Trevor Lawrence Jr., and today we're operating at the intersection of legacy, innovation, and the next chapter of the music business. First off, today's guest needs no introduction, but I'm giving him one anyway. We're joined by one of the most influential drummers walking the planet, the legendary Vinnie Colaiuta. His work defines entire eras, from Zappa to Sting to the countless records he shaped behind the scenes to Herbie. Vinnie is a master of adaptation, intention, and technique. And today we're tapping into all of that. But before we bring him in, we've got to address one of the biggest tech moves shaking up the producer world right now. Spotify has officially acquired WhoSampled. If you're a drummer, a musician, a producer, or anybody who works inside the ecosystem of sampled music, this is not just a headline, it's a signal. Spotify is absorbing one of the most important databases in music history, the map that documents who sampled what, who flipped what, who covered what, and how songs are connected generation to generation. This acquisition is about visibility, it's about credits, it's about transparency, but it's also about control. On the positive side, more detailed credits mean more recognition for creators, producers, engineers, musicians, everyone who actually makes the records. And with WhoSampled's data integrated into the platform, your work becomes more discoverable in ways we have never had before. But then there's the other side of the coin. More data means more oversight. More clarity means fewer places to hide those uncleared flips. And with Spotify's push into AI, all that musical DNA becomes training data, recommendation data, and potentially creative fuel for generative tools. Sound familiar? This is the beginning of a new era where sampling culture, platform power, and AI innovation collide. And that's why today's conversation is so important, because when you sit down with someone like Vinnie, with someone who has lived through every technological shift, adapted to every new chapter, and still plays with the curiosity of a beginner, you get perspective. You get wisdom. You get the reality of what it means to navigate a career when the tools, the platforms, and the rules keep changing. So today we're talking about craft. We're talking about evolution. We're talking about how the decisions being made right now, from the Spotify acquisition to the rise of AI in music, will shape the next generation of drummers, producers, and creators. The past, the present, and the future are all in the room today. So let's get into it. This is episode 4 with the incomparable Vinnie Colaiuta, and you're watching the TrevBeats Show.
Let's talk tech. Let's talk tech. Let's talk tech with TrevBeats.
So Spotify just bought WhoSampled.com, one of the internet's main hubs for tracking samples, covers, remixes, and musical DNA. If you're a producer with music on Spotify, especially if you touch samples, this move directly impacts how your work is seen, discovered, and yes, possibly policed. Let's break this down. So what actually happened? Here's the straight headline. Spotify officially acquired WhoSampled, the community-driven database that maps which songs sampled which records, who covered what, and how tracks connect. And they're just not buying the name. The full team, the data set, over 1 million songs and hundreds of thousands of documented samples and covers are all now moving inside Spotify's ecosystem. Spotify is already showing us how they're going to use this. They're rolling out a new feature called Song DNA, an interactive window inside the app that shows who collaborated, who sampled what, and every related version in the chain. Now, WhoSampled will stay live for now. Same website, same app, just faster moderation. No more display ads and free mobile access. But the engine powering it, that's shifting to Spotify. Let's start with the upside, because for producers who play it straight and actually clear their work, this could be a power play. 1, better credits, better visibility. Spotify says they're expanding creator credits to include more roles. Producers, engineers, writers, everybody. That means your name has a better chance of being visible where fans and industry people actually browse. 2, better discovery through samples. When WhoSampled data lives inside Spotify, a fan can see that somebody sampled you and instantly jump to your original record. If you've got catalog, one clever flip could send people down a rabbit hole straight in your world. 3, built-in research lab. Song DNA basically turns Spotify into a live map of how producers flip ideas. You can trace drum breaks, sample lineages, inspirations, almost like having a sample textbook built right into the platform. For producers who study the craft, that's a cheat code. But there's another side to this, and the producer community is already buzzing. First, sample snitching at scale. WhoSampled has always been public, but when that info becomes native inside the biggest streaming platform on earth, it gets way easier for labels, publishers, or even casual users to spot unclear or borderline samples. Scenes like vaporware, underground hip hop, experimental beat culture, they're worried this could lead to more takedowns and less room to operate in the gray zone. Second, more data means more AI. This fits right into Spotify's bigger push. AI-powered recommendations, AI-powered analysis, maybe even AI-powered creation. A super detailed map of who sampled what is perfect training data for generative tools that can mimic eras, styles, and even specific producers. Hence the newly circulated term ethical AI. That raises big questions about credit, compensation, and control. Third, platform dependence. If the best sampling tools, credit systems, and music DNA features all get locked into Spotify, it centralizes power. Producers become more dependent on a platform that also controls royalties, discovery, and policy. That's something to keep on your radar. Okay, so what do you do with this? Number 1, clean up your credits. Make sure your producer, co-producer, writer, mixer credits are correct through your distributor. When Spotify rolls out expanded credits and song DNA, you need that metadata locked in and accurate. Number 2, be intentional with sampling. If you're sampling, either get your clearance tight or understand that the old low-profile strategy won't cover you anymore. This isn't legal advice, it's just the reality of a more transparent ecosystem. Number 3, use the tool strategically. When song DNA drops, treat it like competitive intelligence. See what connects your tracks to others. Understand who's sampling you. Study how your influences connect. This is information that can shape smarter collabs, better flips, and tighter branding. Bottom line, Spotify buying WhoSampled isn't just a tech headline, it's a shift in how sampling culture gets recognized, recorded, and surfaced in real time. For producers, it's both an opportunity for more visibility and a wake-up call to be more intentional with their craft. This is shaping the next era of how we create, how we clear, and how we get credit. And we're gonna keep tracking it here on the TrevBeats Show. I'm Trevor Lawrence Jr.
Like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe.
Let's talk about music, music. Ooh, let's talk about music.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, today is very special. This interview means a great deal to me for a great many reasons. This is not only someone who I consider a friend, but also someone who was heavily influential on my career and my style of playing, and just, one of the great contributors to modern day drumming. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on Mr. Vinnie Colaiuta. What's up, man?
You're up.
Thanks so
How
much
you
for
doing?
coming. I'm good, man. I'm hanging in there, man. How's everything been going with you, bro?
Yeah, about the same. I
Okay.
think everybody knows my whole deal right now. So
Right,
I'm
right.
treading water and just being grateful.
That's right. I seen you been playing. I seen you been doing some sessions and stuff, man. It's real inspiring, man.
Yeah,
It's feeling
yeah.
good. That's
Thanks.
great, bro.
It's been really great that I could actually record again.
Yeah.
Because in the studio, if something happens and my hand starts going numb, I can just say, I
Right.
need 5. Don't worry,
Right.
don't worry. I'll give you another one just as good.
Right. I
Um,
understand.
but on a gig, I can't do that on a gig. I can't
Sure.
say to the audience, "Hey, popcorn is great here.
Right.
Trust
Right.
me. Take 5 and go get some popcorn.
Right. I feel that.
And
Well,
then
I mean,
15 minutes later, did you get your popcorn yet?
well, I mean, listen, I'm glad to, even see that you're playing, man, because, when I was hearing that you weren't really playing too much, it really, I really felt, I was feeling bad about that, man. So I'm just happy that you're on the road to recovery, man. And,
I'm trying, Trevor.
It's amazing, bro. So, on the drum side, it's like, listen, we all know your history. We all know the work you've done. We all know, what you brought to the table and how incredibly ahead and advanced you were and are, but even back in the early days with Zappa and stuff. So the question I'm having, one of the through line of my first season here is the big elephant in the room, which is AI. And, I just like to get everybody's idea about that. And it's like, today, as drummers have a lot of responsibility now, right? Because now a lot of stuff that used to be just additions, in the early days, like you were a special guy if you had electronics and it just brought something to the table. Those are all requirements now, right? So, hybrid setups and, knowing how to navigate, certain plugins and DAWs, that's all kind of required. So what do you think the next, the years down the line, the next decades look like for studio drumming? Being one of the most recorded guys out here, what does that look like? I mean, is it gonna still be around, or what do you think with
Well,
AI now? What does that look like?
Well, just to backtrack a little bit, yeah, all that stuff is a necessity unless you're out there playing bebop. You don't have to
Sure.
worry about DAWs and stuff.
right,
Just play
right,
the drums,
right,
and
right,
you don't need an amp. You don't need
right,
anything. You
right.
just play the drums, which is great. It's
Yeah,
great. It's great to
yeah.
just think about that, about the music. But that question, Trevor, is it's a loaded one, and it's obviously it's a huge issue now. And a couple of
Hmm.
years ago, I did an interview with a gentleman called Douglas Rushkoff, who's
Hmm.
he's an intellectual. He's a
Mm.
professor. He's a author, and he's regarded as like one of the he's like a media professional. And so I asked him about AI, and he at that time, I think his take on it was that it was sort of like, well, it's just kind of like a search engine,
Hmm.
and I think that he at that time, without misrepresenting him here, because you can find it on my own podcast if you want to look it up and
Okay,
listen to
I'll
it.
check it up. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah, anyway, he had a particular take at that time. Here's the thing, though, it's advancing so fast that we could talk about this 3 months from now and have a completely different idea on it, because it's going to throw some more curveballs at us. If you
Right.
look at I mean, about the what's that Moore's law? I think it is, where the advancement of technology on the microchips and what computers are capable of every 18 months, it doubles or
Sure.
something of that sort. Anyway, I can't remember off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
AI is beating that by
Yeah.
leaps and bounds. I saw something recently where they showed like a collage of different versions of Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Hmm.
And the first AI version was a real primitive one, and it looked like a bad cartoon. And then they kept getting better
Yep.
and better until the last one,
Can't
you'd be
tell.
hard
Yeah.
pressed.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's kind of like we're there now.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of us, we have to think about a lot more than just how it's going to affect studio drumming. On that note, we don't really have a crystal ball, because people were saying, when drum machines came out,
Sure.
they said, "Oh, that's it. Oh, that's it for drummers."
Right.
I kept working for 30 years. I'm
Exactly.
sure you did too. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you did.
Yeah.
So, it didn't really, it was an adjunct.
Sure.
And, when you could hear the difference when a human plays and the human beats. Now, I've often said that people can get used to anything. They can. But at the end of the day, the human beings resonate with the human beat.
Sure.
They really do.
Sure.
Like it's said that a child will always recognize its mother's voice. It's like we recognize each other's beat. We empathize. We feel the humanity in the human beat. We feel
Hmm.
it on a visceral level. And if the day comes when that could be so well emulated by AI, then God help us all. It's going to get bizarre for everybody, not just drummers. But in
Yeah.
terms of studio drumming, I really think that it's a whole different animal. That train has left. It's
Right.
over. The
Right.
party's over. I think I'll call it a day. It's I mean, I think I rode the tail end of the comet. Nowadays, you have people programming stuff, or they like learn to play drums just good enough to play on their songs, or they're multi-instrumentalists, or
Hmm.
there's a bunch of in-house people all doing it. And so, if somebody wants me to do something, they call me for me. Great. Okay, no problem. For whatever reason, if they want name value, they want what they think is my sound or my feel, whatever
Hmm.
that may be.
Hmm.
But in terms of just going in and just, you know, meat and potatoes,
Right.
like being a plumber getting called to fix a leaky pipe,
Yeah.
like some, that's what we many of us did back in the day.
Sure.
It's done. It's over. It's over.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't even think that AI, I mean, it's past the beginning stages now, but even in the beginning stages, it was still over at that point. And
Sure.
I think that AI is not going to make it any easier. It's just because people want convenience. They
Yep.
want convenience and they want whatever is going to be easy for them. And all of these devices are making it easier. And you could argue and say, well, it's advanced this and advanced that. What? I can't even remember phone numbers anymore. If I don't
Sure.
look at my phone, before all of this stuff happened, I could remember hundreds of them, like a
Man, you
lot
are
of them,
not
really.
alone there. You are not alone there.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
people say, well, it's your fault. It's my fault. What are you talking about? Everybody uses these things now. It's not my
Yeah.
fault. Don't
Yep.
pin the donkey on me.
No, that's
No.
real, man. Real talk. That's real
You know
talk.
what I
I feel
mean?
like, oh yeah.
No.
I mean, and when you see, and the thing about it is that I don't even know that this new generation of drummers understands what the heyday was, because there really hasn't been an example in well over 20 years. It's like, the home thing really took off, about 20, 25 years ago. It was really starting and it really started happening. So the old days of all the LA or New York studios and cats passing each other in the hallway and they're just constant sessions and constant union, that's been gone for years, man. So this generation
Yeah.
doesn't really understand, that people like you could make, millions of dollars from just playing drums. Like, it seems impossible to believe. Like, it seems like it's impossible to even fathom that, and it's like, once upon a time, there was room for so many people, and there was just so much work and so many people doing things. So many people had integrity in the music. They really wanted everything to be at a level. Now it's like, what can I get
Yeah.
away with? And it also trickles down from the labels, because when the budgets get depleted, now all of a sudden they can't afford cartage. They can't afford this, so can I give you this to play at home? It's all these little things that happen. And then the pandemic happened, which kind of just said, okay, this is going to be our, this is where it changes. So coming out of the pandemic, man, it's a different time, and,
Yeah, it definitely is. I
our new
mean,
generation doesn't think they need to know how to read. It's just so much, man. It's so much
yeah,
different.
well, I know. I think there's probably several reasons for that. They don't know how to read because they're contextually, what do they need to read for? They get
Right.
in bands and they learn songs, or you know,
Yeah.
even I mean, unless they're on a TV show and they got to read a bunch of tunes in a row, or
Right.
whatever it is. That, you know what I
Right.
mean? It's
Oh yeah.
studio musicians had to read back
Yeah.
then. But
Yeah.
and there's something to that. There is something to reading that's very valuable.
Yep.
Just like there is in composition, just like you write stuff out, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, whether you use a computer or you use a pen and paper, you write stuff out, and there's a reason for that happening. But you're right. But you know what? People are saying, well, that's because we have a new economic model now. Yeah, how's that working out for you? You know,
Right. Well, I mean, and listen,
unless
yeah. You're right. No, you're right. The money, it starts with the money, man. I feel like if it's at the top and the budgets are gone because you're paying people fractions of a penny, and the CEOs are taking out, $800 million, it's going to have an effect. And it might take time, but I think we're living in that time now and we're seeing it. And our instrument is seeing it. The cartridge companies are definitely seeing it. And,
absolutely.
listen, it's thriving in places like Nashville, but that's probably the last place. That's the last.
That's it.
That's the last spot, man.
Well, in America, yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think that
Yeah.
I think that there's probably places in Europe and South America. I think the South American market is still pretty healthy for a record buying. And I remember when all this has been going on for a while now, but I remember seeing places in France even after record stores were going belly up in England and in the United States, and it was already looking dire. I remember going there and seeing that they were still buying records, and that kind of economic thing was still happening. They weren't buying into the piracy, but that was a
Right.
while ago. But
Right.
the thing is it's look, I play, you pay. It's
Right.
like that's all. That's all. Why do you? It's not rocket science,
Right.
And now it's there's certain basic. Well, I'm not an economist, and I don't need to be. I can
Right.
see this. We lived through the experience, and people had no idea who was going to be affected. Cartage companies, labels, truck drivers. The list goes on and on and on. It's like, well, you don't need that anymore. Hey, listen, I'm okay with playing in my pajamas at home just as much as the next guy,
Right.
but at a certain point, no
Yeah.
matter what kind of software I have, sometimes you just want to go, oftentimes actually,
Oh yeah.
you want to go in and not only to interact with people, but sometimes you get things sent to you and you send it back, and that's like, well, I wasn't really thinking that, and you're going, okay, wait a minute, my instincts were always good. Yeah, but could it be? And you go back and forth and back and forth. Whereas if you were in the studio, you'd be
Sure.
done in a couple of hours.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
That's huge. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
and not only that, but they were starting even before the pandemic. Guys, I mean, producers that we know and
Yeah.
engineers, they're like, okay, we want you to play on this track. And one of my pet peeves was if there was no bass on the track, right? And I'd go in and there'd be all this stuff on there, everything, straight the whole bit, no bass.
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
okay, why? And then
Yeah.
and they would say, well, you just get this track down. Nathan's going to be here in a couple of hours. I'm like, why don't you bring him in right now? What do you mean in a couple of hours?
Yeah,
I'm
sometimes they
sitting
don't
here
get it
now.
right. Yeah, they don't get it right.
Yeah,
They
I
don't
mean-
realize that lock is important.
Well, yeah, but not only that, exactly. But whatever I play is going to influence what he could have, and he might be going, man, he did that on the chorus. Okay, well, okay. Whereas
Right.
you know the drill.
Yeah.
Right. And that can only happen when we're playing together. And it's like, what is it with this accuracy thing? We're
Right.
trained to play accurately
Right.
together.
Right.
Together.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable to me how many
Yeah.
people, high profile producers, now drank the Kool-Aid. Then we got to do it separate. Or we got to isolate you. It's like,
Right.
what? For what?
Hey man,
What's
you
wrong
are
with you?
you are and the music and to me the music has changed where it has not. I mean, you don't see, in the 80s, which I believe is probably the heyday of the culmination of all the greatness of all the generations before, the decades before it, the 80s to me was the culmination of everything. And it was like there were so many great songs in multiple genres. Now you're hard pressed to find one. You know what I mean? There was like great songs in every genre, and then those things and those artists like Michael and Prince and Madonna and all these people that went to and Barbra Streisand and all these people that went to another level, but there was so much great music. Now we just had a number one country song, 100% AI, a number one gospel song, 100% AI. I mean, what a difference it is, from when you could turn on your radio. I mean, I don't know if you saw the Yacht Rock documentary. I'm assuming you probably did, but if you didn't,
I didn't.
oh yeah, it's on Hulu. It's great, man. So there's a Yacht Rock documentary, and it just takes you back to so many great songs, man. And I'm sure you played on a lot of them, but I'm just saying, holy smokes,
I remember.
man. Yeah, like holy smokes with the amount of great songs. It made me go back and listen to, Kenny again and listen how those cats were barking on those records, man. Even Triss, man. Triss on Heart to Heart was crazy, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, people like, oh yeah, absolutely. How about Ferroni and Anthony Jackson on
Oh my
What You Gonna Do for
God.
Me?
Oh,
Or Casey
and that
Sherrill
whole album.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
whole
the whole
album. The Night in Tunisia with everybody
Casey.
and Dizzy on it and George Duke and Herbie. Oh God, man. Arif, to me, now let's look, Arif doesn't get his due props to me. I feel like
I agree.
Arif was one of the GOATs, and he didn't have Michael, so I get it, where Quincy gets that title as the guy. But I got to be honest, Arif does not get his props. I've spoken on this at universities, and the kids didn't even understand the depth that he had, because not only did he give the Bee Gees their falsetto, right? He's the reason that happened. It came out in the documentary, but which ended up being their signature. But the way he put stuff together, even if we just examine that Shaka album, that album is just. I just told people the other day, after Anthony R.I.P. passed, like, go listen to Any Old Sunday on that Shaka album and listen to Anthony play over those bar lines like that. And then you'll understand where this whole generation is getting it from. You know what I'm saying? People don't know the lineage. Like, I had Mike on the other day, and he told the story of how the Sadowski he got that he played on all the Dre records came from Patitucci. Patitucci got the idea of playing six strings from Anthony. So it's like people don't know the lineage, man. You know what I'm saying? It's like nothing is really new. Yeah. It just, it recycles. You know what I'm saying?
You're absolutely right, Trev. It's like, and there are several reasons why you want to know the lineage. Yeah. And one of them is to get a greater understanding of where this stuff came from, so you can see the process in a wider picture. By the way, it's all process. It's all process. Yeah. Everything. Life is process. What destination? What are you talking about? Well, I have arrived now. I'm the guy. What do you mean you're the guy? Right. You have arrived. Where have you arrived at? Right. What do you mean? There is no arriving. But here's the thing. To me, I always want to have something to look forward to. So if I feel like, well, I've done everything there is, then I'm just going to be kind of like, well, boring. I don't want to, it's like I want to wake up feeling like, well, there's something else to do. Even if I'm playing the same thing, I want to enjoy it. There's an enjoyment I get from it. And not to deviate from what you're saying here, but there's a whole bunch of things that go along with understanding that lineage and those great songs.
Like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe.
First of all, we were not shackled to technology having it use us. We were using it. Okay.
Bar. That's
we were using it.
That's a bar. Yeah.
Yeah. For creative purposes. And now it's like I got to sit here and wonder, oh, did I learn this new thing? I got to update this now. Oh, shoot, all this stuff, and we got all these things now that are
Right.
supposed to be dope, dope. Oh man, look at this, man.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not helping us to, okay, people are going to say, well, wait a minute. There's guys out there, man, now they can play technically way better than any of you guys could. Slow down, son. Slow
I
down.
don't. Listen, man.
Slow
First of
down,
all,
son.
that's our next question because
Slow
that's
down.
in our community, man. I mean, we've seen a big shift in those earlier generations and decades. Like I was saying, everybody had individuality, right? And now we're seeing this
Yeah.
one style, and there are little deviations, and of course there are some people that influence it and some people that do it better. But the thing that bothers me or that worries me is that now you have people that have no care about diving into any lineage. They're going on Instagram or social media and they're just sitting there practicing with other people and playing exactly like them, and there's no foundation. And and then because of the the use, or I'll say the intrusion of technology now in music, especially live wise, there's no reason to have any of that, because all you're doing is learning something and memorizing it for this moment, playing it exactly the same every night, and that's that. So it's a different mindset too, because now it's like, instead of the skill that we possess for reading music and other generations of drummers that learned that, I think now memory is almost valued more than that. Being able to learn something is, because there's no charts anymore. So you're going on tour.
Well, yeah.
For the most part, I'm doing something right now. The main reason is because it's orchestral and I'm reading drum staff. We don't really get to do that much. The question is, all the records that you've done, we all know how crazy your technique is, and we all know your approach and how your odd meter stuff is so outstanding, but yet you were able to do so much studio work without overplaying. So what's your internal compass for knowing, when to put the things in there, or just when to disappear inside the music? You know what I'm saying? What's your approach to that?
Okay. My approach has always been like, number one, it's all music to me. It's all music. But the other thing is that a lot of our favorite players were studio players. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people like Gadd and Harvey
Mm-hmm.
and even, I remember, like, if you look, people, here's an example. Billy Cobham could play
Mm-hmm.
all over the drums all day long, but then he would play on those CTI records,
Right.
right?
Right.
Okay. You see? And
Yeah.
you weren't hearing like all the
Right.
time. You were
Right.
hearing Billy laying it down. Now, so I was listening to all this stuff, man. Anyway, I come to town and I was all about just, Miles and Mahavishnu. I just wanted to blow. And then playing sessions, it's like, whoa, easy does it now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I started realizing that, wait a second, okay, everybody has heard this over and over and over. You're going to play for the song. So I knew I had to do that, but really started listening to what the song was saying to me and what I could do. What could I do? What does the song want me to play?
Right.
And that's a skill set that can be developed. And part of the reason why I developed it is because back in those days, it was only like 16 track, 24 tracks. You didn't even have two machines together. Way
Mm-hmm.
before digital, it was analog tape. Everybody was in a room together. The
Mm-hmm.
rhythm section, the orchestra, the arranger, all in the room. Yeah, 3 hours. It's like, okay, we're going to cut one song, maybe two songs, and whatever the union would allow. And you better get it right. In 3 hours, you're going to document this forever. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so you know it's going to go on vinyl, a hard thing on tape.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can't go. There's no undo.
Right.
Okay, forget about
Right.
that. We're not going direct to disc. Time is our direct to disc, and we got to get it right. So, not only did you have to know how to read and get an idea of the groove, but play the right parts. So you had to develop this muscle to try to. There's an old thing we used to have called a Rolodex, and a
Sure.
Rolodex was this had a bunch of cards in it, and you would turn a wheel, and the cards would have addresses on it or whatever it
Sure.
was, And so I'd be going through the mental Rolodex like, okay, what groove is going to work? Okay,
Right.
and then after a while, I stopped thinking about that, so it would just either come to me or not. So I learned to trust my knee jerk, my
Mm-hmm.
first instincts, my
Mm-hmm.
first reaction, my gut reaction to what was going to, be the right thing to play. And
Yeah.
more often than not, it was the right thing. And
Yeah.
because I had to develop that because time was money. And
Sure.
then the snags that started happening when some producers would go, well, could you try this? And I'm like, "Well, okay, hang on." And then we'd go by way of China and come back around 3, 4 hours later just to what I played in the first place, because
Right.
that's what I trained myself to do. So I trained myself to develop those instincts. Now, here's the other thing though. Forget about, well, he plays what's right for the song. First of all, you don't think about drums.
Right.
Don't think drumming, and don't even think about the song. Don't think about anything. Like
Mm.
nothing. Zero. Don't think. Just
Mm.
listen. Listen and let your body play what you understand. Don't be
Sure.
going, well, if I did this, maybe I could do
Right.
that. You're
Sounds
not
like that a
there.
lot these
You're
days.
there.
Yeah, it sound
Yeah,
music.
well,
A lot of
then,
cats sound like that these days. Yeah.
it's there's
Yeah.
a lot of information out there, and a lot of it is piecemeal, and the
Yeah.
context is different now. The contexts, plural,
Yeah.
because you can go out and play by yourself, and you can develop all kinds of things on the drum set that and people are like, well, that's because social media enables you. No, people are going to do that anyway because that's the way we are.
Right.
We create stuff and we think of stuff and we have a curiosity. It's going
Yeah.
to happen, social media or no social media. Only difference is you see more people doing it and imitating everybody else. That's
That's
the
the
difference.
that's
Because
the
we're
difference.
where's the media? We're the media now. But
Yeah.
but
That's true.
yeah. So and we championed originality back then, like you
Yep.
said. But that's my whole thing about it. It's like, and then if I can't think of anything, then I'll stop and reflect on it. But what I mean is, if nothing comes to me,
Sure. Sure.
and sometimes that happens, but not often. Not often. It has happened to me on sessions back in the day. I was on a session and I showed up and it was just like, guy said, "Well, what are you going to play on this?" And I'm like, "I just don't hear drums. Sorry."
Oh,
And he went,
yeah. That's
"Okay,
honest. Yeah.
okay."
Honest. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
honest, man.
And I'm like,
That's
if
honest.
you do, get somebody else because I don't hear
Right.
it. So what can I tell you?
I mean, but you know what though? That mindset is literally the epitome of what is the music saying, right? It's not because of money. And I've said the same thing. I mean, anybody that does records at any level should know or would probably tell you, I'm sure I could go to, 20 of the greatest recording drummers and they're all going to say the same thing, which is, I play for the music. So it's like when people say, well, put your thing on, it's like, what's my thing? Like you mentioned earlier, my thing is the music. What are we talking about? This is not my record here. I'm coming to play on your record, so I'm going to play with the music. And that goes with sound, the drum sound. It might, you hear JR talk about certain things about how he, it is choices, and we all have multiple snare drums, and how do we go about navigating that? Because that's actually humility. You know what I'm saying? When we're showing up with with multiple drums, and that's saying, hey, I want to be able to service your music however it needs to be, right? So it's actually
Sure.
humility. But some people say, well, why do you need all those drums? It's like, okay, you don't get it. You know what I mean? Because we're not a plugin.
yeah.
You can't just turn a switch. We have to take a drum off and make sure it sounds
Yeah.
right under these mics in this condition. So
Yeah.
I feel like the studio thing, man, it's an interesting thing. I just wanted to get your take on that part because it's like so different now. And then the overplaying thing is starting to be where I'm seeing that time, playing time is kind of like a chore now. So it's like, yeah, I'm gonna play this
I
time
know.
so I can get to my
Let-
show.
let me-
Where's my show? It's time
Yeah,
for my
exactly.
show.
let me jump in. Let me jump in. See, that's the thing. It's like you can talk about technical advancement all you want, but
Right.
then it's kind of like unless you're going to write music to accompany that, or that's going to be your entire composition. At the end of the day, you listen to any music, whether or not the sound sources are drums or samples, you hear tune four in some
Yep.
way, or
Yep.
you know what I mean? We're going to play time. And if when we do that and it feels good, nothing takes the place of that.
Right.
Also, we're living in this age of sensationalism now, you know, and when you have everybody trying to climb for this visibility, you know, it's like
Mm.
this whole attention economy, you
Game of
know, and
Thrones.
that to me breeds this whole sensationalism of, okay, watch this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's everything is
Yeah.
like it's I
It's
mean,
different. Yeah, it's different, man.
okay.
It's
I
not
mean,
musical. A lot of times it's not musical, man. It's just
yeah,
forcing it. You know?
it's like, okay, respect, man. You put in a lot of hours. Great,
Yeah.
great. Okay. But you know, it carries over into culture too.
Yeah.
If you know, you see people, they'd rather like listen to cheap gossip than the Sermon on the Mount, or
Mm.
some
Hmm.
deep philosophical thing that could really impact their life in a good way. You
Hmm.
know, and the other thing is that I'm sorry to cut in, Trev,
No, no,
but
no. It's all good.
you and I understand the whole idea of just letting the music talk to us, because I think that one of the advantages of, like, you and I have both played with Herbie Hancock,
Right.
world's greatest improviser, right? I mean, come on,
Yeah. The
the
guy. Yeah.
giant of giants,
The
the
goat.
goat,
Yeah.
the guy. Come
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
we're gonna say, when you
Yeah.
get up on stage with him and the whole band,
Yep.
you know, it's like you can't think.
Yep.
You're like, you just got to have your antennas up.
Yep.
Okay, you don't know what's going to happen, and
Especially with that
you got to
cast.
flow with it.
Especially with Lionel and
Exactly.
James.
Yeah, and Lionel and
Anything.
James too.
Yeah,
And
anything's
Herbie,
possible. Yeah.
forget it. Forget it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
anything. And so you got to you have to be like this, you
Yeah.
know, and because and so you're not thinking, you know, you're reacting and you're contributing. It's a big conversation. So actually, I believe that kind of awareness and sensibility can be carried over into, you go to a session, somebody puts a song, and then you let the song play you. It's the only difference is the song is an incomplete painting,
Right.
whereas playing live, it's you're all sculpting at the same time. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so
No,
you
you're
know what I
right,
mean.
man.
But I think that it informs that other thing if you
Yeah.
allow it to, because
Hmm.
you're going in there as an open book. You're an open book, just like you are on stage when you're playing with Herbie Hancock and James Genus and Lionel Lewick. Yeah,
Right.
you're an open book in a session. So
Yeah.
there's that.
Well, no, you're absolutely right, man. Well, listen, I want to wrap it up with this because I always like to ask this question. Out of all the sessions and live and travel and everything, what's one moment that stands out? Like, it could be funny, it could be a realization, it could be something, just something that stands out above all else, in a musical situation. What's one moment that you'll always remember?
Well, one thing, and I've told part of this story before. I may have told the whole thing, but yeah, I mean, I did say this, but I'll say it again. So when I first started touring with Herbie, uh, Nathan was there with me, right? So
Hmm.
we did like 2 days of rehearsal or something like that, and we took off and went to Europe. So we
Right.
showed up in Spain. All right, we get to the gig in this theater, and it's like 15 minutes before show time, and I looked at Nate and I said, you got a set list, man, by any chance? He goes, no, I don't. I'm like, me neither, man. We gotta go on in 10. Like, you know what we're gonna play? He goes, no, I don't. And I'm thinking, oh no. Herbie comes walking out. He just walks out onto stage
Oh, wow.
and he starts playing by himself. And then we just jumped in and we had no idea what was going to happen. None.
Creating.
So then we're playing, and somewhere along the gig, right? Herbie played something that knocked me out so hard that I stopped playing for about 4 bars and got into a giggle fit. I got the giggles because you know how it is when he starts unloading, right?
Oh
It's like
yeah.
I'm dying over there, right? And all
Yeah.
of a sudden I went, oh no, man, I'm supposed to be playing. So I stopped and I kept playing again. After the gig, I go up to knock on his door, and yeah, I say, hey, Herbie, man, man, I'm so sorry, man. He goes, Bob, what? And I said, "Well, I mean, you were killing me, man. What you played, it was knocking me out so hard that I stopped playing, man.
Right.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's okay. He didn't care
Right. That's
because to
right.
him that was my statement.
Yep.
He thought
And
I
that's the
just did
music.
that, just like
Yeah.
I'll
But
never
that's
forget
that's
that.
that skill, that's that story that he'll tell about Miles, where it's like, hey man, if you do something wrong, play it again. It's like we're creating in the moment and it's just gonna be what it's gonna be. And I think that's one of the great things about that
Yeah,
gig that nobody really understands until you're on it is the level that it is, but then the creative freedom that you have because he's calling you. You know what I mean? And it's like,
hmm
I had a similar story with him. It was like my first gig, and we were playing, and it's different rehearsing anything. It's like, this was in Cork, Ireland, so I had like Robert Glasper, all these people were on the side of the stage. So I'm like, okay, let me just not think about what's getting ready to happen because I'm now it's getting to nerve time, right? It's time to finally play. The management's there, this is like, is this guy gonna work? Is this kid gonna work? So man, we're playing, and we're playing Actual Proof. And man, he played something so cold, Vinny, that I was chewing gum and I just went, wah, and my feeling just came out it just cracked and just came out.
Oh
And I was playing.
no.
So we get through the gig. And so at the end of the gig, I said, Herbie, man, listen, man, we were all standing around. I said, man, you were playing Actual Proof, man, and you said you played something so incredible, man, that my feeling popped out. He said, "Oh, Actual Tooth," and that just became
No, he did.
that just became the joke, man. I said, man, this is hilarious, Actual Tooth. But yeah, man,
Oh man, that's
but
funny.
yeah, man, but man,
That sounds like him. That sounds like him.
so. But honestly, Vinny, man, aside from being able to share that lineage with you, man, being one of the cats that sat in that chair, you are a huge influence on me, man, coming up. And, back in those days,
Thank you,
everybody
Jeff.
wanted to have, pit you. What it was in the 80s. It was like the Yamaha thing, and you like Vinny or Weckl. Man, I like both of y'all for different reasons, man. Like, who cares? Like, all that stuff is ridiculous, man. Everybody does what they do.
I know.
Everybody's an individual. So but some ways that you influence, man, I have to say it's the playing, but sometimes it also is opening up the fact that you can jump across genres, man. You don't have to be a one-trick pony, right? And I found that was a big thing that I saw you from afar and looked at too, man, which is, man, he's doing gigs like Herbie and then Zappa stuff early on, but then Sting and then all these records and then some legit thing, and then an orchestra thing, a movie score. This is those types of influential things, man. Sometimes you don't even realize people are looking at that. So, me coming in the generation behind you, I looked at that. And Harvey was the first person. Harvey used to let me use his Gretsch before I even had an endorsement, before I even had a drum set that was adequate for recording. He would literally that's when Jeff still had Drum Paradise. So he would allow them to bring the Burgundy Gretsch, man, to sessions for
Yeah,
me.
Jeff used to let me
Jeff
use his
Jonas.
drums too.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, bro.
I'm talking about Jeff Porcaro. May he rest in peace.
I was talking about Jeff that had Drum Paradise. But yeah,
Yes,
okay.
Jonas.
Picaro, yeah. So I'm just saying, man, these types of influential things, it has something, it imprints on people. So with the generation changing, it's just tough because this next generation is not going to get any of that. And that's why conversations like this are important, because we're kind of bridging two gaps of generations, but then have a lot of similarities too. So they can see and go back through both of our histories and lineages and look at, oh, okay, this guy did stuff from this period on. This guy did stuff from this period. I think that's important too, to show so it's not completely forgotten, man. So more reason why I'm so appreciative of you coming on and us having this conversation, bro. And, I'd love to do it again
Trevor.
One day, man. And yeah, I'd love to do it again one
same
day.
here.
A part 2 for sure.
Well, you know what? Just to wrap up quickly, I want to say that I have to give this generation credit too, because, there are, you see these people that stick out, going against the grain of sensationalism or finding new things and new sounds and new textures. And I think that despite all of this stuff that could be a negative influence on people, there are those that are out there that are going to break through and take the art into a whole new direction. And they're doing it, and I have to give them credit, man.
Yeah, true. That's true. No, every once in a while, Yep, you see some people pushing the line, man. There's people pushing the line for sure. You know what I mean? So
in a good way. In a good way.
Absolutely, man. Well, again, man, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Trevor.
And all good. And we have to, one day do this again, man. And I'll be in touch with you, man. And thanks again. All right, ladies and gentlemen,
thanks, Trevor.
Yes, sir, one of my favorites, Vinnie Colaiuta, here on the TrevBeats Show. And it's just been a blessing to have this interview, man. So talk to you soon. Well, that closes out episode 4 of the TrevBeats Show. Massive shout out to the iconic Vinnie Colaiuta for elevating the conversation today. Anytime Vinnie speaks on drums, creativity, or the evolution of this industry, it's a masterclass. I hope this episode challenged your mindset and expanded your toolkit for navigating what's next. Everything we build here is designed to drive your artistic growth and operational momentum. NAMM is fast approaching, so don't forget to check out the Musician's Pocket Guide to Endorsements, Volume 3. It's officially out, and it's the most future-facing edition yet. We break down modern brand alignment, AI-powered asset creation, post-pandemic endorsement structures, and how to position yourself as a business, not just a musician. If you want to level up your NAMM lingo, this is the blueprint. You can go grab it now at TrevorLawrenceJr.com. Make sure you also check out the full merch line on the site: hoodies, tees, vintage gear for drummers, producers, and fans of the show. You can also tap into my Splice Sounds pack using the affiliate links in the description. Boom bap drums and vintage hip hop are there right now. When you use those links, it directly supports the platform and helps us scale this content to the next level. As always, if this episode brought you value, like, comment, subscribe, and share it with another creative who needs this insight. Your engagement is the fuel that drives this platform. Join us next week with the inimitable music director to the stars and one of the most recorded keyboard players in history, Mr. Greg Fillinganes. Until then, thanks for watching the TrevBeats Show. We out. Peace.
It's the TrevBeats Show and we out. We out. We out. We out. It's the TrevBeats Show and we out. It's the TrevBeats